Hi, everybody. Wanted to walk you through some changes that we made to the mutual fund compare tab. And we made these changes because we wanted to provide all of the information that you need to do a reasonable high level screening of a mutual fund in one place. We think it's really hard to do that right now, given the tools that exist in the market. And frankly, our past iteration of the mutual fund tool was helpful, but it only analyzed one dimension that you need to consider when making a decision of what fund to invest in, and that was the historical returns. But there's a lot more to selecting the right mutual fund for you. And now we think we've put together a very nice tool to help you do that. So let me walk you through it. So the first change that you'll notice is that mutual fund, there aren't separate tabs for each category of mutual fund. We've just consolidated it into one table, and you will be able to see that we've preserved the category of the fund here. So you can still see what type of fund it is and sort by what type of fund you want. So that information is still there, but this makes it easier to benchmark funds of different categories in one place. So that's one change. The next change that we did is we've kept the Barossa Club ratings. That's going to give you a sense of what is the consistency of historical performance. Has this been a consistent top performer or has it been a laggard? Again, a 5-star rating means it's a very consistent performer. One of the most important things to note when making a mutual fund investment decision or any investment decision is that past performance is no guarantee of future returns. So you should never just make a decision based on the past history of a fund, though it's a very important point to look for funds that have done well in the past or understand why they have not done well if you're still interested in a fund that has not performed well recently. So the next data item that we've added is something called the expense ratio. The expense ratio is a really important number, and it basically tells you the price you are paying to the mutual fund manager for investing. So typically when you invest in a mutual fund, they'll invest that money on your behalf, but a certain percentage of what you invest will go towards covering the expenses of the mutual fund. So that means the salary of the fund manager, the resources they use to make the investment, and their various marketing costs, etc. So this is a really important number, and it gives you a sense of how pricey a mutual fund is or not. And this is expressed in a percentage of AUM basis. So if a fund has a 0.52% expense ratio like the one here, it means that if I invest 100 rupees in the fund, then you're going to look at 50 paisa of that going towards covering the expenses of the fund. So it comes out of your return that you get. So funds with higher expense ratios, you're going to see more of your return go towards covering the costs of the fund, and they'll have to generate even better returns to be worth it. So this doesn't mean, again, that you should always pick the lowest expense ratio fund, because some funds may have a high expense ratio but they've performed really well, and so they're still good investments. But it should be a key factor when you look at similar funds. If you find two funds that you like a lot, one is cheaper than the other, then probably makes sense to go with the cheaper fund. Okay, the next data item we've added is something called the active index. And this is a proprietary measure that we've computed. And the way it works is as follows. If you say that the Nifty 50 represents the average allocations in sectors for the stock market, right? Because it's a benchmark of the stock market. And you say that that's my baseline. What the active index does is it figures out how different are the sector allocations for the fund you're interested in relative to that index. And the more differences there are, the more the fund that you are looking at is making unique bets. So a fund with a low active index, that's going to be something like an index fund. An index fund will have a very low active index because it's basically investing in the same sectors as the overall index. But you may find funds that are taking concentrated bets in a few sectors. That's going to have a higher active index. So our recommendation is, if you're new to investing and you don't have a view on particular sectors, look for funds that have lower active index values. Look for passive investment funds, index funds, ETFs, etc., that have low active indexes. If you're, on the other hand, someone that's sophisticated, done a lot of thinking about what industries they want to be exposed to, you may want to look at funds with higher active indexes, because you're going to be taking more bets in differentiated industries. So the next column tells you what industries. So which industries is the fund overweight in? Which industries is it betting most on? So for example, if we take the PGIM India Diversified Equity Fund, we can see that it is a mediumly active index fund. 65 is not so high, not so low. And they're overweight in healthcare, consumer discretionary, and agriculture. So if I look at those industries and I think, yeah, that makes sense, I want to also, I think healthcare, consumer discretionary, and agriculture are going to do well, then I can look at that fund as a potential investment. And then the remainder of the data on the compare tool is basically the returns, both on a monthly basis as well as an annualized yearly basis, and the risk reward via the Sharpe ratio, which you'll be familiar with from our small case tab. So we think with this information, this gives you a lot of data to find the right fund for you. So a quick example of how you can use it. Let's say that I want to look at funds that have a technology component. So I'm just searching for funds with technology. That narrows my list in the table to these funds here, which are overweight in technology. Okay, now I want to look at funds that have, let's say I want to sort this by not 1 month performance, but let's say I want to sort it by 5-year performance, because I want to see long track records of success. Okay, so here I have my funds, and I can see that Axis Blue Chip Fund is overweight in healthcare, retail, and technology. So do I like those sectors? Maybe I like them, maybe I don't. I can see that its active index is 30.78, which is not that high. There are funds with higher active indexes. So it's not taking too much of a concentrated bet on those sectors. And I can see that its expense ratio is reasonable, 0.55%. And its Barossa Club rating is 5. And it's a large category fund. You know what? This looks like a fund that I want to do more work on. So I can add it to my tracking tool. And I can monitor it now by going to the track page. Just reload it. Track page. And now I can keep tabs on how this fund is doing. It shows up on the funds that I'm tracking on a regular basis. And if you're set up on our Telegram alerts, you're going to get a daily update on how this fund is doing. So this is a great way to try to find the right mutual fund for you. So the process again is use a compare tool to narrow it down to the funds you like, track those funds for a little while, make sure you like the performance that you're seeing, and then go through the materials of that fund. And if you like it, ultimately you can invest. So hopefully this tool is useful for you. Pass on feedback to Anita, and look to release more and more of these tools that hopefully make your lives easier. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.